TLDR, my fiance is a sleep talker and sleep fondler, and I can't tell when he's awake or not, so we'll end up having sex. I can't tell whether to feel bad about it or go along with it, since he's okay with it. Throwaway just in case. Okay, so the title sounds awful, but hear me out before running to the comments. Me, 20F, and my fiance, 22 meters, have been together for about 3 years, engaged for 1. Our relationship is straight out of a cheesy movie, immediate connection, love at first sight kind of thing. We have the same sense of humor, both emotionally intelligent enough to the point where we never actually fight about anything, and he's so sensitive to my needs, which is great, since I have a few really annoying mental disorders like the dreaded autism and ADHD wombo combo, and I'm sensitive to his. Either way, we are perfect for each other, and I genuinely can't imagine ever being without him. So here's my issue. Ever since we first started staying over at each other's places, he's been a big sleep talker. I'm talking you could have full conversations with him and only find out he was sleeping through the whole thing in the morning. He's also been known to go to bed complaining that he's too hot to cuddle, but as soon as he's asleep he'll be all over me. This is where things get weird for some unknown reason. When he's sleep cuddling me, he'll start feeling me up like a hormone-ridden teenager and saying things way dirtier than he usually says, and straight up asking me if I wanna do the nasty with him. I'm usually a night owl, so I'll be fully awake for this, most of the time at least. Sometimes I'm just drifting off when he does this, and when he started doing this, if I was in the mood, I'd go along. If not, he'd drop the issue and we'd both go back to sleep. We'd finish up, and I had no reason to think anything was wrong. After this happened a couple times he mentioned offhand something about waking up in the middle of having sex with me. I asked him further, and he said that he doesn't remember anything before actually having sex. None of the foreplay, the dirty talk, feeling me up, none of it. I put the pieces together, and I was honestly shocked and horrified at myself. I felt like I was taking advantage of him. He said it was okay, and that he genuinely doesn't care, and that it's fine. It would be a different story if he said he liked it. He said that he likes it about as much as every other kind of sex we have. This didn't really make me feel any better, so I resorted to trying to gauge whether or not he's awake to prevent situations like this in the future. I started by asking him if he was awake. He'd say yes, I'm awake, and we'd go ahead. Nope, dead asleep. I started asking him multiple times and he'd say things like yeah, of course I'm awake, asleep. Eventually it got to the point where I'd ask him math questions. He'd answer them right or ask me things like, I don't know, can you do 56/3 in your head? I'd say no. He'd laugh and we'd go on with it again, dead asleep. I'm genuinely at a loss because it's borderline impossible to tell when he's asleep, so I don't know how to make sure he's in a state of mind to actually consent because he's so articulate and himself when he's sleep talking to me. He's fine with it. I feel confused and just a little disgusted with myself because consent is my highest priority. I think the worst part of it all is that the sex is somehow just like or 1,000 times better when this happens, which only further makes me feel like a horrible person and that I'm taking advantage of him. I don't know if it's made okay just because he's okay with it. I'm really just hoping someone can either ease my fears or tell me what I can/should do. Is your boyfriend being treated by a neurologist? It sounds like he has a severe sleep disorder. This was my first concern. Looking at trying group camping again and all, since my kids are raised, was so common long time ago, and I loved it. One camper is adamant about their own tent as a couple. It's not jealousy, it's his sleep issues. Full conversations, undressing, cuddling, basically anything is possible. He just sounds a bit drunk, so it's hard to notice. We all in our LTR believe all at least 20+ years with our partners, so we have gotten to learn how to cope with things. Get this checked out. As far as feeling odd about it, I would see it as fine as he is saying it is multiple times. Would he wake up to know if you are not consenting? Hey, my husband has this too. I had to deal with similar emotions. We also had sex once while we were both asleep because I just didn't wake up, which was frankly not great for me, but my husband stops if he doesn't want to anymore, even if he is asleep. In the beginning it never happened. He always continued until I said no, but as time went on he sometimes started to feel me up and stuff, and then had a sudden change of mind and went back to sleep. That was extremely calming for me, as it gave me a sense of he is capable of consent, if that makes sense. Also it never bothered him either to wake up during sex. We both think it's kind of funny. We also figured out that it mostly happened when he was horny during the day, but there was no time for sex, or he was too tired or similar situations. In my personal opinion, if you're up for it, go for it. Oh my god, that's exactly our situation lol. Thankfully he never pushes himself on me when I say no, and if we end up doing it afterwards I'll be like, were you awake for X? And he'll say no, and we'll have a good laugh about it lol. If he said he's okay with it, then he's okay with it. My BF does this sometimes, and he'll wake and be *shocker* extremely happy about it. But make sure you get explicit consent when he's awake during the day. Sometimes you'll fondle me when I'm asleep and this will lead to us being intimate. I feel like I'm taking advantage of you, even if you say it's okay. Can you give me reassurance that this is okay? I would like to have your consent before this happens again. Something along those lines. I've had that conversation with him during the day, but I can't help but still feel icky about it. Like, I know he's given me consent to do it but it still feels wrong. I guess it's really a me problem, but it feels better to know that other people have gone through similar situations. It's called sexomnia. Maybe learning more about it will help too. I mean shit, if it's for the good of the people. Come on everyone, let's ops BF. Well, in your previous post you said, don't tell my wife and now your fiance is a male. Seems kinda suspicious. Plus the story you described also seems kinda nuts. I'm having trouble believing. Ugh, thank you for this comment. Guy's a jackass. If he said he's okay with it, you need to go with that. It obviously doesn't bother him. Giving a partner blanket consent is absolutely a thing, as long as you respect if he ever wants to withdraw said consent. I'm a blanket consent person myself. When I'm in a relationship I prefer my partner to assume consent, unless I tell him otherwise, and, incidentally, I'm very clear about never ever waking me for sex. https://www.healthline.com/health/sleep-sex. Interesting read. This is clearly a huge concern for your partner, and it should be addressed. But on the note of feeling guilty or icky about it, I wouldn't stress. Your partner did give you express consent while he was awake saying he doesn't mind. He doesn't see it any better or worse than when he's actually awake, which means it's not bad to him. TMI, I, 26F, personally enjoy being woken up by sex, and I've explicitly told my partner, while I'm awake during the day, to feel free to wake me up / just go ahead while I'm sleeping. I don't technically give consent while I'm sleeping, or at night, but in my opinion, I gave the consent while I was in a completely conscious state. I understand it's not the exact same situation, but the comparison of consent is the same. You had the conversation, you were honest, and he's told you it's okay. If you don't want to go ahead then don't do it, but that's on you at that point, not his. Normally, I wouldn't suggest anyone doing this, but in the case of people who black out or sleepwalk, or some variant, it can be helpful for them to see. Get his consent while he is awake to record you guys while sleeping, so he can see exactly what happens. Then have a serious discussion, again when he's awake and functioning, about what he wants to do about it, if anything, and if he truly is okay with whatever happens. It sounds like it isn't an issue for him, but since it messes with your head, at least this way you'll both know exactly what went down, and be able to give it serious consideration, especially since he might want to go get help for the problem. If it was me, a bigger concern would be if he was ever staying as a guest with someone else and this occurred. That's a conversation you need to have too, because it could be detrimental to your relationship down the road, if not discussed up front. First off, sexomnia is a thing he should see a doctor. Secondly, you have his consent while he was awake. My wife and I have had similar conversations, because there is an established trusting relationship there you can have this kind of consent. It's not your fault, but stop having sex at night entirely when you're actually going to bed at least. Take him to a doctor and explain this. It sounds like he's got some really bad sleep disorder that needs to get treated. There has been times when I drink too much at parties or holidays and I black out. Instead of getting mean drunk or sad, I get really in that mood and starting things with my BF. I always start it. Sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't. In the beginning he told me he would never take advantage of me, and he never has. He always makes sure I'm okay with it when I'm sober and always makes sure I'm the one starting it. I wake up with no regrets and I know we both had a good night. We've been together for 9 years now. Don't stress over it, but assurance is always nice. This really wouldn't sit right with me personally. He said it's on, so you're not necessarily in the wrong for continuing, however, it proceed with extreme caution. My reason being that you stated he says much dirtier things when he's asleep. I would be nervous that he'd want to try something while unconscious and wake up feeling like he did not actually want to try that thing. This is really up to you as he's your so, but I would stop doing this immediately. Thankfully he never does anything he wouldn't do when he's awake, but I really appreciate you pointing out that I should be on the lookout for that. I never thought about that before. He's given you blanket consent for sex, so enjoy. Just make sure you're on birth control or put a condom on him, because short of the known possibility of an accident, he has not given consent to be a parent. The purpose of these rules around consent is to respect other people's boundaries, not to have rules for the sake of rules. Since your fiance consents while awake and while in his half asleep state, you're not violating or assaulting him. Better hope he never sleeps with someone else in a bed or a family member. Oh my. It sounds like sexomnia. He may have sexomia. Refer him to a medical professional. Now you're fine. You took all the appropriate steps. He even said it's cool, which is consent, even if you don't get the consent in the moment. It's weird. Don't get me wrong, but I guess I'd have to be there. Keep talking to him about it. As long he continues to be cool with it, then it's fine. He's fine with it. That's the key word, because I know plenty of people that actually do the sleepy sex or engage sex while the other person is asleep, and the entire reason it's okay is because they have prior consent to do it. I can definitely see why you're a little awkward and stuff about it, but he's fine with it. It's not quite a normal circumstance where somebody can just say yeah he doesn't do this in his sleep, but y'all had to talk. He's okay with it, so I wouldn't actually worry too much about it. You're beating yourself up over something, but your fiance feels is completely acceptable. I would say it's up to you and your partner. I'm someone who has sex in their sleep. If he and you are okay with it, then I see no issue. But if his conscious self doesn't like it, then I would say no to his sleep self every time. The other thing is, what kind of birth control do you use? If he is asleep and his inhibitions are disabled, he may come inside you rather than pull out, or potentially engage in other risky sexual behavior that could be dangerous to you both. All that being said, you haven't done anything to feel guilty about. You didn't sexually assault anyone. Me, 22 meters, and my girl, 34F, have a similar situation. There are two me's, the awake one and the asleep one. Both can function independently of each other. I've been told by her I do things like your husband and I don't mind at all. This isn't something to worry too much about. But maybe he should visit a sleep clinic. He literally gave you consent and said it's fine. IDK, why you even posted this? Agreed. I'm married and we both know that if one of us starts having weird sleepy middle of the night sex, that it's fine, whether we fully remember it or not, on either side. You've been given consent and are barely getting a reaction from him at all about it, let alone a negative one. You're not doing something wrong here. It's not like you're actively trying to find ways to get him unconscious or something. If it really upsets you, just stop doing it. But if your partner is okay with something, it means it's, generally okay. Next time ask him, do you know who I am? Or say my name. This happened to me, but I think when my ex did it, it was drug induced or something. He was always having normal sex with me while sober awake, but always seemed selfish and self-oriented. When asleep or high or drink, he would wake up and always get horny and call me babe, even though he never did that sober. I asked him to tell me my name. I have a nickname he always got wrong, so I was wanting to tell how sober he was by, if he would correct himself. He said another girl's name. Then a month later I confirmed he was cheating on me for weeks with her. Not to say her BF is cheating or anything, but clearly he has more interest in you when he's asleep, so you might find out he is not into you as much when he's awake. Maybe resentment or boredom or any lack of interest, but I genuinely don't think her assaulting him if he feels indifferent. But I don't think you should have not sex with him when he's asleep, because he's not 100% aware what's happening and it's a bit weird, and he might use it against you later. 17 and 20 had love at first sight. And I'm not going to read all that. If he's fine with it, it's fine.